Sir, please just give me 5 minutes.
They rejected him again and again. Not once, not twice, 30 times. Harvard said no. KFC said no. Even the police said no. He wasn't good-looking, not rich, not powerful. But he had one thing, a fire that refused to die. While the world mocked him, he was quietly building a dream too big to fail. They laughed at the English teacher who talked about the internet in China. They called him crazy. But that crazy dream would one day become Alibaba, a company that redefined global commerce and made him one of the richest, most respected billionaires in the world. This is not a story about success. This is a story about pain, rejection, and the unstoppable power of belief. This is the story of Jack Ma. They didn't see potential in him. They saw a failure, an awkward thin man with broken English and too many dreams. In classrooms, he was the student everyone ignored. In interviews, he was the man everyone rejected. And yet, he carried something no one could measure: belief. Jack Ma was born in Hangzhou, China, a world far from Silicon Valley, far from opportunity. His parents were poor musicians, struggling just to survive. He grew up in a small apartment, no connections, no money, and no reason to think the world would ever notice him. But the boy had curiosity, wild, burning curiosity. He wanted to see beyond his street, beyond his city, beyond the walls that poverty had built around him. Every morning, he rode his bicycle to hotels where foreign tourists stayed. He offered to guide them for free, just to practice his English. They told him stories about a world he had never seen, and those stories became his education. The streets became his classroom, and rejection became his teacher. But still, life hit him harder. He failed his school exams not once, but twice. He failed his college entrance exams 3 times. Everywhere he went, failure followed. He applied for 30 jobs, 30 rejections. Even when KFC came to town, 24 people applied. 23 were hired. The one person left out, Jack Ma. Most people would break, but Jack didn't. Because deep down, he knew, if they don't open the door for you, you build your own. He said once, "I told myself someday I'll make people remember my name." But there were nights when even he doubted it. Nights when he looked at himself in the mirror and whispered, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not meant for this." Yet every morning he woke up and started again. That's what made him different. Not talent, not luck, but refusal to give up. Then came 1995, the moment that would change everything. He visited the United States for a translation job. There, for the first time, he saw something new, something strange on the internet. He searched the word China. No results, no websites, nothing. That moment hit him like lightning. He realized the world was connected, but China was missing. And in that emptiness, he saw an opportunity no one else could see. He said, "If there's nothing about China on the internet, I'll create it myself." But who was he? A man with no computer skills, no investors, no support, just a dream too big for anyone to take seriously. When he returned to China and told people about his idea, they laughed. "Jack, are you crazy? The internet will never work here." But Jack didn't need them to believe. He only needed one reason to start. In his small apartment, with 18 friends who trusted his madness, he began something called Alibaba. No money, no fame, no certainty. Just faith. The early days were brutal. The internet was new, slow, unreliable. They had no funding. Sometimes they couldn't even pay rent. But they had one thing stronger than money, a shared belief that someday this dream would matter. Jack told his team, "We are not born rich, but if we can work for 10 years, someday the world will know our name." And they worked day and night, writing code on borrowed computers, designing websites no one was visiting yet. While others chased quick profit, Jack chased vision. While others wanted comfort, Jack embraced chaos. He was building not just a company, but a revolution. And it all began from rejection. Because when the world says, "You're not good enough," the truly unstoppable ones don't argue. They build something that proves everyone wrong. And that's exactly what Jack Ma was about to do. The boy everyone laughed at was now standing at the edge of history, with a fire in his chest, and an idea that would change how the world buys, sells, and dreams. This was only the beginning. The seed of rejection had started to grow. And soon, the world would know the name Jack Ma, The year was 1999, a humid evening in Hangzhou. The lights flickered weakly in a small, stuffy apartment. 18 people sat cross-legged on the floor. No suits, no luxury, just sweat, hunger, and belief. In the center stood Jack Ma, a man with no power, no fortune, no connections, just a voice, trembling yet alive. He said quietly, "If we can survive 10 years, if we never give up, one day Alibaba will be the pride of China." Nobody clapped. Nobody smiled. They only looked at him wondering, is this man a fool or a prophet? Because outside that apartment, the internet belonged to the West. America had Amazon, eBay, Google. China? Nothing but blank screens and broken dreams. But inside that room, something invisible was being born. A revolution not of weapons, but of will. They didn't have desks. They didn't have air conditioning. Sometimes they didn't even have food. But they had fire, the kind of fire that doesn't need oxygen, because it burns inside the soul. Jack Ma wasn't trying to get rich. He was trying to make others rich. He believed the smallest shop in the smallest village deserved the same chance as the biggest corporations on earth. He said, if we can give power to the small guys, if we can make it easy to do business anywhere, we can change the world. And for a moment, they believed him. Not because he showed them proof, but because he made them feel something real. Hope. Hope is a dangerous thing. It spreads faster than money, and it doesn't die easily. Alibaba was born not in a boardroom, but in chaos. No rules, no roadmaps, no guarantees. Only one goal: connect China to the world. They launched the website. Slow, clunky, fragile. Sometimes it crashed. Sometimes orders disappeared, but Jack Ma didn't care. He would laugh and say, "Good, that means people are using it." His optimism was terrifying. He smiled in storms. He cracked jokes in meetings where investors called him crazy. They told him, "Jack, you're not a coder. You're not an engineer. You're not even from Beijing." And he would simply nod and reply, "You're right, but I'm a dreamer." And dreamers build what logic cannot. Still, reality hit hard. No banks trusted him. No investors wanted a piece of his Chinese eBay. Even his friends whispered, maybe Jack had lost his mind. But Jack had something they didn't, a vision that refused to die. He saw a future where people would shop through a screen, where trust would be the new currency, where a farmer could sell tea leaves to New York, and where the small man would finally rise. Every night he'd gather his team and say, "Remember, we are fighting for tomorrow's world. Even if we fail, our children will win because we tried." Those words became oxygen in the darkest days. Because Alibaba didn't just need money, it needed belief. Then came the moment that tested everything. In 2000, after countless rejections, Jack Ma got a meeting with investors from America. They sat across him, suits sharp, expressions cold. He stood there, small, thin, his English still broken. They laughed. They mocked. But then he said one line that silenced the room. "I don't want to be rich. I want to make others rich." The laughter stopped. Because in that single sentence, Jack Ma showed them what they couldn't buy: purpose. SoftBank invested $20 million, and overnight Alibaba had a heartbeat. But new money brought new monsters. Competitors sharpened their knives. Hackers attacked their servers. Every inch of success came at the price of another sleepless night. Jack told his team, "We must learn to dance in the storm. If you can't find calm in chaos, you don't deserve victory." That became their rhythm. Chaos, fall, rise, repeat. He didn't fear problems. He studied them. He didn't escape pressure. He shaped himself under it. Jack Ma wasn't just building a company. He was building a culture of resilience. And resilience, when fueled by vision, becomes unstoppable. Slowly, Alibaba grew. From one apartment to offices. From offices to buildings. From 18 people to 18,000 believers. The boy who once failed his exams was now leading a revolution. But Jack Ma knew one truth. To build an empire, money isn't enough. You must control what people believe. You must control the story. You must control the mind. And that's exactly what he would master next. Because in the world of billionaires, the greatest weapon isn't wealth, it's psychology. And Jack Ma was about to play that game better than anyone on earth. Success doesn't just change your bank account. It changes the way people look at you. It changes the way you look at yourself. And when success came for Jack Ma, it didn't come like sunlight. It came like a storm. By 2003, Alibaba was growing faster than anyone believed possible. China was waking up to the internet, and Jack Ma was no longer the laughingstock. He was the man everyone wanted to listen to. But deep inside, he still felt the same fear he did in that small Hangzhou apartment. The fear of losing everything. He once told his team, "When we were small, we had no money, but we had courage. Now we have money, but courage is harder to find." That was his warning. Because success has a poison, comfort. And comfort kills vision faster than failure ever could. So Jack Ma made a rule: never let success make you soft. He forced his team to think like underdogs even when they were kings. No fancy offices, no endless celebrations, only purpose. He reminded them, "We are not here to be rich. We are here to make history." And history was exactly what they were making. Alibaba exploded. Hundreds of millions began using it. People who never dreamed of selling online were suddenly business owners. Poor farmers, small shopkeepers, students, everyone had access to the digital world. Jack Ma became a hero, a symbol, a billionaire who talked like a poet and smiled like a teacher. But with fame came something darker: control. Jack realized that power in the modern world isn't held by politicians. It's held by those who control information. And Alibaba controlled data, the pulse of China's economy. Every sale, every click, every transaction passed through their empire. And that's when the government started to watch. Not because they wanted to stop him, but because they began to fear him. Jack Ma had built more than a company. He had built a network of influence, millions who believed in him, trusted him, followed his words like scripture. And that's when he discovered rule number 6. Power isn't given, it's taken. He began using psychology not just on customers, but on his rivals. When they copied his products, he smiled. When they mocked him, he stayed silent. When they attacked, he said, "Let them come. We'll grow faster." He understood something most billionaires never do. The calmer mind always wins the louder battle. He trained himself to stay still in chaos, to speak slowly when others shouted, to smile even when the room turned hostile. Because silence in the hands of the wise is a weapon sharper than words. And soon, Jack Ma became more than a businessman. He became a philosophy, a living example that psychology can build empires stronger than steel. His next move was his most dangerous. In 2014, Alibaba went public in the US, the largest IPO in history. The world watched a school teacher from China raise $25 billion overnight. It was victory, wealth, legacy, everything he had dreamed of. But victory has a price. Power began to shift. The bigger Alibaba grew, the more eyes turned toward him. Government, investors, critics, rivals. He had stepped into a world where one wrong sentence could cost billions. And Jack Ma had always loved to speak freely. So he spoke again. He criticized China's financial system. He called it outdated. He called for innovation. He called for freedom. And the next day, Jack Ma disappeared. For months, no one saw him. No interviews, no appearances, no trace. The man who once controlled the digital world was gone. When he finally reappeared, he was quieter, older, more cautious. He smiled, but the fire was dimmer. Because he had learned the final rule. Rule number 7, in a world built on power, the price of freedom is silence. Jack Ma built an empire not through machines or money, but through emotion, vision, and the deep understanding of human psychology. He taught the world that leadership isn't about commanding people. It's about touching their minds. It's about turning weakness into wisdom. And it's about never letting fear own your dreams. The teacher from Hangzhou who failed every exam built one of the greatest empires in human history. Not because he was the smartest, but because he believed when no one else did. And that belief, that stubborn, unshakable, unstoppable belief, turned a simple man into a legend. He didn't just build Alibaba, he built hope. They called him foolish, they called him lucky, but maybe they just didn't understand him. Because Jack Ma's story isn't about business. It's about the war between fear and faith, and how one man who had neither money nor power used his mind to rewrite the rules of success. This is what separates billionaires from dreamers, not their wealth, but their will. If you want to rise, you must think differently, feel deeply, and risk completely. Because the next empire might just be waiting inside your mind. Watch more stories like this, only on Zero to Founder.